Gabby Yorath gets to grips with the week's main sporting issues at 11:30. Late Tackle follows the news.
President Yeltsin warns NATO, don't drag us into a world war. Rupert Murdoch is told you can't take over Manchester United. Fury as Mary Chipperfield escapes animal cruelty ban. And that cocaine joke gets Fowler banned for this season.
From ITN, the ITV Nightly News with Katie Darrow.
Good evening. Russia today dramatically escalated its warning to NATO over the action against Yugoslavia. President Yeltsin told the West, don't push us too far, it could lead to a world war. His statement came hard on the heels of a flurry of conflicting reports in Russia. At one time, nuclear weapons are said to have been retargeted to point at NATO countries. Then that was denied. From Russia, Mark Webster reports.
Facing intense domestic pressure to salvage his country's pride, Boris Yeltsin said slowly and carefully that Russia could retaliate with military force if NATO deployed ground troops.
натовцам и американцам, и немцам, что вы нас не толкаете на военные действия. Иначе будет уж европейская точно, а может быть мировая война.
Despite this show of military strength, Moscow denied it had retargeted nuclear missiles towards NATO countries. A move welcomed in Washington.
We've been assured at a variety of levels that Russia, and this is the main point, will not get involved militarily in Yugoslavia, and that President Yeltsin has given no instructions to the Russian military regarding retargeting of Russia's strategic nuclear force.
And Britain said Moscow had nothing to fear.
This is not an operation intended in any way to challenge the security or the defense of Russia, and there could be no logic and no justification in Russia increasing its military posture as a response.
Given the impoverished state of the Russian economy, this would be a conflict it doesn't want and certainly couldn't afford. It's likely, therefore, in the coming weeks, Russia will intensify its efforts to act as a mediator and try and find a negotiated end to the bloodshed. Mark Webster, ITN, Moscow.
For many of the Kosovo refugees now in makeshift camps, a new plight is becoming apparent. The heartbreaking separation of husbands and wives, parents and children. Our senior correspondent Mark Austin in southern Albania witnessed at first hand the desperate search of divided families.
We came across them sat around their fires under the trees on waste ground outside the town of Korcha. These people have lived through 10 days of hell, forced from their homes in Pristina to the squalor of the mud in Macedonia. Now they sit, still without real help, in Albania. Victims, they say, of a con trick by the authorities across the border.
The Macedonian authorities apparently told these people they were going to Germany or Holland. They even filled in forms to say where they wanted to go. But then they were forced onto buses, driven through the night and dumped here in Albania, where their suffering goes on. It was, it seems, a cruel deception.
And all around us we found families torn apart, children without parents, without brothers and sisters. They surrounded local charity worker Svela Macholi, thrusting forward lists of the missing.
And there are many people like this, yeah?
Yeah, have many people.
With a loud hailer, she's calling out for this woman's husband. He's not found. He's almost certainly looking for her in Macedonia. She's then approached by 13-year-old Vucic, who tells her he lost his parents in the exodus from Kosovo.
Does he know where his family may be?
He said maybe if you can help him to get the family from the television.
And then there's Hodjia Kungala, who's been separated from her entire family.
Yeah, she said, I lost my husband with 4 daughters.
Conditions here are dreadful. Children scavenge through the rubbish. and the floor of an abandoned building is the makeshift toilet for 1,500 people. The local Albanians are doing their best to help, but in the poorest country in Europe, it's not easy. These are people who have lost their homes, now many have lost each other, and it's another enormous challenge for aid workers here, trying to put the broken families of Kosovo back together again. Mark Austin, ITN, Korça, southern Albania.
NATO admitted today that one of its bombs did indeed miss its target during yesterday's raid on Kosovo's capital, Pristina. This cockpit video shows bombs hitting a telecommunications centre, but a third missed and it landed in a nearby residential area.
One bomb may have caused some collateral damage. I would like to stress that this was considered a critical target and collateral damage risks were taken into close consideration during our attack planning.
NATO insisted that Serb forces caused much of the damage in Pristina. NATO is tonight continuing to bomb Yugoslav targets. Sirens went off around 3 hours ago on the 16th night of the campaign. Last night, bad weather again hindered NATO planes, but they did manage to hit some targets, including a factory where workers had staged a sit-in, acting as human shields. This report from Julian Mannion has been monitored by Serb officials.
Another fuel depot goes up in flames as NATO presses on with the remorseless air campaign. But once again, there are Yugoslav claims that the latest attacks have hit civilian targets. Overnight, several missiles hit the Zastava factory in the town of Kragujevac, south of Belgrade. The factory is the country's only car producer and also makes light weapons. News cameramen were shown extensive damage to the car assembly line, with equipment wrecked and car parts and half-finished vehicles hurled across the plant. It's not known what damage was done to the weapons-making area. And there are claims of serious casualties among the workforce. Earlier this week, the factory was the scene of an all-night vigil by workers hoping to act as human shields. Doctors at the town's hospital have told Yugoslav television that 120 workers were injured, a number of them seriously. But so far there is no independent confirmation. Yugoslav controls on foreign journalists are making it difficult to verify the claims of civilian casualties. But what does seem clear is that NATO has now inflicted heavy damage on the country's only car factory. It's part of the growing price that the Serbs are having to pay for their continuing defiance. Julian Mannion, ITN, Belgrade.
Tonight, officials at the Pentagon in Washington said they've received disturbing reports that young Kosovo women are being herded into a Serb army training camp and systematically raped. Up to 20 may have been killed. The reports, which still have to be confirmed, are described as an eerie echo of documented instances of rape and murder during the Bosnian War. To other news now, and Manchester United fans who fought Rupert Murdoch's Sky takeover bid are tonight celebrating what they're calling a tremendous victory. The Trade and Industry Secretary Stephen Byers announced he's blocked the deal because it's not in the public interest. Helen Wright reports.
Top-flight clubs across the country are now likely to be studying the implications of this decision to block the takeover of Manchester United. Though in Manchester tonight, the end of the £600 million deal was a cause for celebration for fans.
Maybe it's bad news for Manchester United, but it's good news for football in general, including not only the Premiership but Division 1s, 2 and 3. I think it's good for the fans. I think the fans want it. And I think it's good for football.
A Monopolies Commission inquiry said the buyout would affect healthy competition between broadcasters and the quality of British football.
I have therefore announced to the Stock Exchange that in order to protect the public interest, I am blocking the proposed merger between Manchester United and Sky B.
Sky currently owns sole rights to broadcast live Premiership matches in the UK. It was feared that if it also owned a football club, the company would...
We're disappointed, but we don't consider it a blow to Sky. Our mainstream business is broadcasting, in covering the best of sport, and we're going to get on with that.
In the wake of this ruling, there are calls tonight for the government to consider establishing an independent football regulator to look again at the issue of TV rights and see how the fans can best be served. Helen Wright, ITN, at Old Trafford in Manchester.
The Metropolitan Police say they're following up what they call 2 gold nuggets of information after last night's television interviews with the 5 men suspected of murdering Stephen Lawrence. They've been carrying out fresh inquiries in this South London street near where Stephen died. It follows statements by David Norris in ITV's Tonight programme that he might have been there on the night. The programme also revealed conflicting accounts by 3 of the other suspects about what happened. Police say it sparked a huge public response.
The place lit up like Blackpool illuminations at the end of that programme. All our phone lines were engaged. There are people out there with some very significant information. If you got that information, you give it to us, we'll do something about this.
Mary Chipperfield learned her punishment today for animal cruelty. For repeatedly beating a baby chimp, a fine of £7,500. But the circus trainer was not banned from working with animals, to the disgust of the crowd gathered outside the court. Adrian Britton reports.
Barely visible, shielded by a wall of policemen, Mary Chipperfield and her husband Roger Corley walking from court into screams of abuse from animal rights protesters. The 61-year-old circus trainer cowering from the fury of demonstrators. As her husband tried to protect her head, police fought to push the crowds back. Earlier, Mary Chipperfield arrived at court already convicted of 12 counts of cruelty to a chimp and her husband of causing unnecessary suffering to a baby elephant. The magistrate imposed fines and costs of over £20,000, but protesters had wanted her banned from keeping wild animals.
And if someone is convicted for cruelty, they should not be allowed to continue keeping animals and training those animals to perform.
This video of 18-month-old Trudy led to Mary Chipperfield's conviction. Secretly filmed by the Animal Defenders Group, she is seen beating the chimp with a riding crop.
And this is Trudy today. It's her birthday. She's 3 years old. Here she is with her adoptive family. And although Mary Chipperfield originally said that she wanted Trudy back, today in court she finally accepted that this should be Trudy's permanent home.
This afternoon, a birthday treat of chopped apples and raisins. Trudy still shows signs of stress from the abuse, but the Monkey World Sanctuary is confident she will fully recover. Adrian Britton, ITN, Dorset.
The Football Association today banned the Liverpool striker Robbie Fowler for 6 matches and fined him a record £32,000. It's punishment for his gay taunts to Chelsea's Graham Lasseau and for pretending to snort cocaine after scoring against Everton last weekend. Here's Peter Staunton.
Robbie Fowler arrived expecting to be punished for his crimes. He was hardly prepared for the severity of the sentence, which was handed out. Charge number 1, celebrating in front of Everton fans on Saturday by pretending to snort cocaine. And in case they missed it first time, he did it again. His excuse, years of abuse over untrue claims of his drug taking. Charge number 2, visually suggesting that Chelsea's Graham Lasseau was gay. A totally untrue claim, which he said he hadn't intended. Lasseau got his revenge with an elbow which felled the Liverpool player. The FA accepted that Lasseau had been provoked.
He didn't condone violence of any kind, but he'd suffered what he called a torrent